What are the opportunities for product recommendation with Spotify? Or if I'm listening to certain kinds of music or certain podcasts, does that affect like what books are being recommended to me?
We have an amazing team of human editors pretty much based in all of the countries we're at, and they work very closely with publishers. They listen and read to books daily. I don't know how they fit in the time, but they really have their sort of finger on the pulse, just like our music editors and our podcast editors, to really understand what's hot right now. But at the same time, we lean heavily into how we can make sure that the service is personalized to your listening habits. So as I said, if you are interested in podcasts on gardening, that's a very good tell that you might be interested in gardening books. Obviously, music is a really great tell as well.
Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. For years, the audiobook industry was defined by a single dominant player and a purchasing model that asked listeners to commit to an entire book before they knew whether they would enjoy it. Spotify is betting that there's a better way. By folding audiobooks into its subscription service and using the same discovery engine that powers its music and podcast recommendations, the company is trying to transform audiobooks from a niche product for avid readers into a mainstream entertainment format. Duncan Bruce, Spotify's Director of Audiobooks Partnerships and Licensing, has been at the center of that effort, working with publishers to build the company's licensing strategy and expand its catalogs from 150,000 titles at launch to more than 700,000 today. In this interview, Bruce explained how Spotify convinced publishers to embrace a radically different distribution model, why casual sampling is unlocking new audiences for authors, and how the company is using AI and product innovation to make audiobooks more accessible without replacing human creativity. If you want to listen to an audio version of this show, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, gently tap on that subscribe button so you can watch more interviews with the world's most successful media entrepreneurs. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey Duncan, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
So super excited to talk to you. Ever since Spotify first announced kind of it was getting into audiobooks, I've been kind of, as a media junkie who I've known for a long time, Audible's obviously had a monopoly on the market. So I'm super excited to see how Spotify could come in and disrupt this growing industry. So I'm super excited to just hear about what Spotify has been doing in this regard. To start with, I'd love to just hear a little bit about you. I was looking at your LinkedIn. It looks like you have not only a long background in publishing, but then also a long background in audiobooks. Can you tell us a little bit about your background prior to joining Spotify?
Yeah, sure. So I've always worked in publishing my entire career. Straight out of university, I joined an educational publisher, and I did some really interesting things there, working in textbooks in Africa of all places as well, which was great. And then I had 10 very happy years at Penguin Random House, and that was pretty much joining when the ebooks were booming. So my responsibilities were digital sales for Penguin Random House, which then encompassed audiobooks and physical books on Amazon as well. And then I left Penguin Random House about almost 4 years now, with the objective right at the start of Spotify getting into audiobooks to effectively help build the proposition and work with publishers to negotiate the licensing and the proposition to our users. We did those deals probably 3.5 years ago. We launched in November 2023. And then the team's grown, and my team now encompasses licensing with new countries as we go around the world, but also partner management. It's really important that we want to have the best relationships with our publishers, with our independent authors. So my team handle the day-to-day interactions with our publishers to make sure that they get the most out of audiobooks on Spotify.
So at Penguin Random House, you were working out of London that time?
Yeah, I've always been based in London, but worked very closely with my US colleagues over there and around the world. And we basically worked on audiobook strategy and ebook strategy and anything non-bricks and mortar, so physical bookstores.
And my understanding of the audiobook market is that for the past 15 years or so, it's been the most consistently growing portion of the book market, and kind of it used to always be kind of a tiny side industry of books, prior to kind of the Audible era. Because I remember this in college, to buy an audiobook, you had to get a big clunky book of CDs or books and stuff like that. And I remember even the CD versions, trying to listen to them I had a hard time keeping my place and stuff like that. So not only was it expensive, but it wasn't like super practical for most people. Is it true that like audiobooks are one of the fastest growing portions of the book reading market?
Absolutely, without a doubt, and that's probably been the case for the last 10 years, I would say. And it's certainly evolved from, as you say, big library CD cases, often as a result of the needs of people with visual impairments and the practicalities of wanting to listen to audiobooks. But as time's evolved and now access has improved, and it's certainly become much more mainstream, so it's continuing to grow at a rapid rate. And I would say I think last year, we believe that audiobooks actually overtook ebooks in terms of revenue for publishers, and it's continuing to show no signs of abating. And our role within that is how we can try and give more access to audiobooks who have never tried, to customers who have never tried an audiobook, and help grow the market. We don't want to sort of shift consumption away from physical books or ebooks. We want to incrementally add on to help authors and publishers grow their business.
And then prior to Spotify getting into it, back when you were at Penguin Random House, was like most of the market, was that Audible?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, without sort of breaking confidentiality, that's pretty well known for sure. And the library market was very big, but there are other players as well. But certainly Audible had a very large market share for sure.
And Audible's done some interesting experimentation with like an all you can eat type of like subscription, but for the most part, any kind of new books on Audible it was basically a standard purchase type of thing. If you pay, I don't know if it's like $12 a month or something like that, and you receive like a credit or a token, and then you buy, and then you're basically buying that book to own it. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also had like a $7.99 a month or something like that. That was an all-you-can-eat, but that was not like new titles. That was something that was like a pooled revenue share that people could it was based on how much you listened of a particular library, and then it would allocate money to publishers based on that or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the ins and outs of their model, but certainly the basis was the majority of their catalogue is one book a month, but with a selection of books which you can listen on a wider basis too. Yeah.
Yeah. So Spotify obviously is like basically building out a new model, one that I've long thought there was a big opening for, given, the music streaming market, for instance, where it's like an all you can eat type of subscription. So you joined the company in 2022, and I think that was the year that it kind of launched kind of its initial steps into the market. It was basically just another a la carte type of selling. Can you walk me through those days? You're at Penguin Random House. Did Spotify approach you? Like, what was the initial pitch for you to come on board at Spotify?
Well, I think for any publisher, their incentives are how they can grow the market, and for any publisher, for any author, you want to make sure that you have route and access to more readers. And Spotify is very blessed that we have a huge user base of monthly active users and paying subscribers, many of whom might not be traditional readers. There is, many of the existing services very much tailor for people who love audiobooks or love books and are willing to pay for that. But for publishers who really want to see how they can find a younger audience, an audience who maybe have never tried the format before, that's where Spotify's kind of sort of opportunity really shone from. So, a la carte was a great stepping stone, and it's a great way to sort of practically get audiobooks pretty easily to our users. But that's not how people on Spotify tend to want to consume. They're used to podcasts and audiobooks on a streaming service. So it was very much a sort of stepping stone for us to improve and evolve our model. And we moved on to this model which we call audiobooks and premium. So it's only available for people who are paying subscribers. And you get, rather than a credit, you get 15 hours as part of your entitlement. And we think actually the hourly entitlement is a lot more beneficial for customers. The average audiobook is around 10 to 12 hours, but also allows people to try books they may have never tried before, or be a bit more experimental. When you have a credit, you have your book and you don't like it and there's a bit of jeopardy involved, whereas actually being able just to play and with limited friction allows you to dive deeper into the catalogue. It allows you to try books you may have never tried before. So we found that it's actually opened people's ability to try deeper into the catalogue. And secondly, it also allows for shorter books as well. You know, I'm a parent.
Yeah. So I definitely want to get into all this. I'm just trying to get the kind of linear story. I definitely want to like dive deep into all that. So so were you approached by Spotify or did you apply for a job at Spotify? Like just trying to get the timeline correctly.
Yeah, I knew that Spotify were interested in this area for sure. And to someone within audiobooks, I was like, well, that's a company I really admire. So I kind of was, looking at job opportunities, and it came up, and I was very lucky to have got the job. So I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, and so this was probably before. This was definitely before your time at Spotify, but maybe you've learned this story since then. Is that my understanding is like Spotify's entry into podcasts actually came from an insight that Daniel Ek had, where the way that Spotify, and I might be butchering this story, Spotify's like licensing agreements in some random Scandinavian country or something like that worked was it was also the music rights were also bundled with audiobook rights, and incidentally in that one country audiobooks were just like accidentally available on Spotify. And Daniel Ek or someone high up at Spotify started seeing this data that that the users in that country were voraciously consuming audiobooks on Spotify, and that was what unlocked the insights that then allowed them to start moving into podcasts. Have you heard that story, or did I get that story mostly right?
Probably elements of truth, elements of not. It's certainly maybe it's about rights, but I think Germany's probably where you're referring to.
Okay.
And actually, a lot of music distribution companies who we had business with actually had, saw the opportunity and were putting audiobooks through the music feed, and not a particularly wonderful experience, but actually we saw that, wow, users really wanted to listen to the spoken word. And Germany's always been a huge audiobook market. And actually that was certainly a data point that we saw as well. Wow, we must see how we can follow this lead and improve the service and make it even better. So yeah, Germany was very much sparked the interest in that market for sure.
Yeah. So when you came on in 2022, what was your job specifically? Like, were you like, obviously you were going to have to basically build a new model for how to work with publishers. Was that your job to like be the interface with publishers to kind of hammer out these deals of how like Spotify could work with publishers?
Yeah, for sure. There was some infrastructure from before, of course, but I was probably the first employee to focus mainly on licensing. So yeah, it was establishing relationships with publishers, understanding importantly what's important for them, what do they want, how would they like to see our entrance to the market, what would be success for them, work on the model and negotiate the rights. So it took many meetings to build trust with publishers, to work together collaboratively, to sign the deals and then to launch.
Yeah, and like obviously authors are kind of like musicians. They're a very vocal bunch. Anytime there's any kind of new, especially from like some kind of large conglomerate or tech company, like they're going to be very skeptical on whether that whatever model introduced like hurts or helps them or somehow degrades their power and stuff like that. Was that like a tricky situation in terms of like trying to get the model right to like not only get the publishers happy? Like did you meet with authors groups? Like what was kind of like that back and forth like to try to figure out like what is the right model so that there were the incentives in place for them to play ball and join Spotify?
Yeah, I mean we have two relationships. We have independent authors who aren't represented by publishers who we speak to on a regular basis, and they're their own business. And then of course the access to authors is mainly from publishers, is through the publishers. That's who their rights are with. So our liaison was very much with the publishers, and they represent their authors as best as they can. They understand the risks and benefits of moving into new models. So we were very intentional and making sure that we did something which was going to answer some of their concerns, which is mainly about how we can grow a market, how we can have fair payment, and how we can find new audiences for their authors. So change is always interesting, but we were really delighted with the response, and ever since we've launched, it's gone from strength to strength.
And and I think I've seen some data showing that you've already significantly grabbed market share for audiobooks. For the a la carte version that you initially launched with, what was the reasoning behind that? Was that just to get some initial data on audiobook consumption, or is it just you still had to what was the thinking behind launching kind of just a more standard a la carte, where you could just purchase one ebook or audiobook and stuff like that?
I'd say definitely ease, and testing. And again, a lot of the back end operational aspects of just launching a store, it's very hard, getting the metadata in, getting the product right. So a la carte allowed us to launch, test the market, see what people wanted, and also begin these initial relationships with publishers on a pretty standard offering.
Yeah. And so obviously, audiobooks has its own P&L and has its own business model, but my kind of understanding of Spotify and its strategy with podcasts, music, and audiobooks is that it's kind of creating kind of a user lock-in kind of thing, where if I'm already listening to my podcast on Spotify, then I'm not going to go to some competitor to subscribe to music, because I'm already in this one app all the time. So that there should be synergies that are driven, so that so someone who is already listening to audiobooks on Spotify might be more likely to listen to podcasts, and it might be more likely to also listen to music and use it all in the same thing. Whereas Audible is a standalone app, Apple Music is a standalone app. They have less user lock-in. Do you guys think about those kinds of, how much do you think about those synergies of that kind of users who are using not just one product or using different kinds of products, and maybe have lower churn rates or something like that?
Yeah, so to an extent, yes. Ultimately, it comes back to we want to be the number one destination for audio in the world, and obviously music, podcasts before, and audiobooks helps deliver that as well. We've also recently launched articles, so relationships with magazine publishers as well, for them to have audio versions of their articles as well. But yeah, we knew that we've got this huge distribution, and again, we think that removing friction, ease of being in one place is a real superpower for us as well, and it's also allowed us to unlock new users, and there is of course a great parallel between people who listen to podcasts that they might like listening to audiobooks, and vice versa. So we're able to kind of help kind of personalize the listening experience. If you love listening to podcasts around American football, we can help know that you might be interested in an American footballer's autobiography. So there's a real interaction between what people listen to across those three formats, and us being able to continue to serve up the right content at the right time as well. But we also know that rather than audiobooks cannibalizing consumption on music or podcasts, it's actually just added more people listening. So people listen to audiobooks on Spotify, listen to 10% more days on Spotify on a monthly basis as well. So it's actually kind of just, got people spending more time on Spotify on a daily basis, which is great for us. It's great for our license holders as well. So it's kind of allowed us to just improve the offering. We are a subscription service. We know that people can go elsewhere. So it's always incumbent on us to add value to the offering to make sure that people see the value in what we offer.
Okay, so let's get into what Spotify does and how it's kind of changing how the market works. And you kind of alluded to this earlier about how it allows for more casual sampling and stuff like that, whereas before the model was you basically had to buy an entire book, kind of sight unseen. So the initial version in 2023 that you launched basically was just 15 hours of audiobooks that you could listen to on top if you were already a paid subscriber to the music subscription. That was the first iteration, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's basically all these Spotify users who were already paying just woke up and they're like, oh, there's this great like extra add-on and I can start sampling audiobooks and stuff like that. What was was it the full library or was it with select publishers? How big was the library back then?
The library was great. I was very proud of the library we achieved. We had deals with in publishing, we have a big five, and all the big publishers were there as well. Started off with 150,000 titles, which we were really proud about. But 3 years on, it's now risen to 700,000. So that's a mixture of some publishers or independent authors who weren't on board at the start joining, and many of them were in exclusive agreements with other competitive services. So I think it's testament to sort of show the trust they have on us that they're now adding all of their catalogues to the service as well. So we're delighted with the quality of the catalogue that we've got.
And I don't know if this has been reported by Spotify or from other sources, but like my understanding is the way that the agreement with the more traditional publishers work is there's some kind of threshold that hits, whether it's like 10%, 20% of the book. Once a user gets that, then you're paying like a set price to them, and then the independent publishers, like the self-published publishers, it's based more on just percentage of overall listening, that there's some kind of pool money that like kind of like closer to the music, how the music royalties are allocated. I don't know if you can talk publicly about that or
no, I'm afraid not. I mean, obviously our agreements are confidential, but our agreements are based on consumption. And publishers big and small are happy with the terms and continuing to work with us. So, but I hope you understand we can't really talk about the ins and outs of the commercials.
So, how do self-published authors interface and get their books on Audible? Or sorry, Spotify.
That's okay. I'll forgive you. So we have a service called Spotify for Authors, which is a self-service portal, and we try and make it as simple as possible. You have your recording, you create an account, and you load up with the metadata, and very quickly the books are there. So some independent authors use distributors and wholesalers, but we try and make it as easy as possible for independent authors to be able to self-serve and add their books on Spotify as easy as possible.
So what did you start seeing in the data in terms of, because like just to kind of reiterate, like what's kind of radical about the Spotify model is it allows like an actual more casual user to just kind of naturally click into an audiobook. Maybe they're surfing for music or podcasts. They see something cool. They can click onto it and listen to a few minutes and it'll count towards that 15 hours. But if they don't like it, then they can dip out of that and dip into another audiobook. And I think you said that the average audiobook is like 10 to 12 hours. So somewhere in there they could sample a few books, but then also, settle in and listen to a full book. So what did you start noticing in the data in terms of how users in those early days in 2023, how they were interacting with Spotify audiobook content?
The majority of people, whilst it kind of allows for people to taste, the majority of people start a book wanting to finish it as well, and so that's certainly what we see. I think initially we saw, and maybe it was the timing of when we launched. We launched in the fall, which tends to sort of be when a lot of the publishers bring out their non-fiction memoirs as well. But often we know so the proportion of non-fiction books versus fiction at the start was actually quite disproportionate. And we actually thought that was a really great tell that these were new listeners, because the majority of people, when you dip your toe into the audiobook world, non-fiction is often a good way to start, whether it's a business book or a memoir. And it was quite funny. It coincided actually with, I don't know if you remember back then, the Britney Spears memoir, which came out pretty much like the week before, and there was a lot of talk about it, a lot of press. And actually, of course, we know a lot of people listen to Britney Spears on Spotify as well. So actually, that book flew off the shelves, so to speak, in the first few weeks, and we knew that was a kind of a book. We were able to be really strong in those books which touched the zeitgeist, the books of the moment, and again, people who might not have gone to Barnes and Noble to buy the book, but having it there for them, they were able to start the book and hopefully begin their audiobook journey. We also found that disproportionate amount of men were listening as well, and again it's leveled out at about 50-50, which is great. Generally speaking, in the book world, to much more dominated by female readers, both for physical books and audio as well. So again, we sort of put this down to a lot of men listening to podcasts suddenly being able to taste audiobooks as well. And also we found that the depth of the catalogue was a lot wider than we expected as well. Naturally you would expect, particularly often for non-readers, that they gravitate to the top of the charts. They're not necessarily sure where they want to begin with, but actually, and that certainly is the case, obviously bestsellers perform really well on Spotify, but actually we found that very quickly a large proportion of the catalogue had been started and begun as well, and we took that as a great tell that people were trying different books, were going deeper into backlists, and we're finding a whole range of fans, which was, and again, publishers were delighted with that as well. The publishers want to sell their backlist and find new opportunities for discovery. So we're really happy with the diversity of listens throughout the catalogue.
What are the opportunities for product recommendation with Spotify? Like, if I'm listening to certain kinds of music or certain podcasts, does that affect like what books are being recommended to me?
Yeah, for sure. So we have sort of two ways that we recommend books. We have an amazing team of human editors, and who are pretty much based in all of the countries we're at, and they work very closely with publishers. They listen and read to books daily. I don't know how they fit in the time, but they really have their sort of finger on the pulse, just like our music editors, just like our audiobook editors and our podcast editors, to really understand what's hot right now, and also to kind of surface like unhidden gems as well, which may not have got the shelf space on bookshelves as well. So they're where we start with. We want to make sure that they're working closely with independent authors, with our publishers, to understand the best books coming through. They curate the store, whether it's around certain themes of the year, Pride, Father's Day, Mother's Day. So they help kind of curate, like any good bookseller would do, an incredible list of titles to recommend. But at the same time, we lean heavily into kind of how we can make sure that the service is personalized to your listening habits. So as I said, if you are interested in podcasts on gardening, that's a very good tell that you might be interested in gardening books. Obviously music is a really great tell as well, so a lot of music memoirs perform very, very well on Spotify. A lot of comedians autobiographies, if they have a podcast. So we take a lot of these signals. We also work very closely with publishers to support their PR efforts as well. So one of the actually most effective ways of books being recommended and discovered are through podcasts now. And a lot of publishers are working really hard to get their authors on high-profile podcasters to talk about the books, talk about their lives. So we work very closely with publishers. If we know someone's going to be on Dax Shepard or another podcast, that we're able to then help surface that book for people who have listened to an author talk about that book, that later on that day they can also get a recommendation for the book they've been talking about as well. So we're just trying to make it as easy as possible and remove the friction from hearing about a great book to being able to start it within seconds.
So in addition to the algorithmic recommendations, you have like a liaison team that's just like in constant conversation with prominent authors and publishers to say, okay, this is coming out in 3 months. Here's our recommendations for how to optimize for Spotify, or is there more?
Absolutely, yeah. So we my team leads that as well, and we're speaking to publishers on a daily basis about tips for how to maximize reach on Spotify. Also, just understanding their priorities. If there's big launches, we want to be the number one destination that publishers think about how they can collaborate with us on marketing. We do a lot of book launches. We do a lot of events. We have incredible activations, which that only really Spotify can do. So, for instance, very recently in the US, we did a heated rivalry activation. So we work very closely with the publishers there. It's one of our biggest books. It's talked about a lot. It's got a huge take up in the media as well. So we were able to kind of understand the super fans who love those books on Spotify and invite them to an amazing pop-up event with activation around. It was themed around ice hockey. And again, kind of really lean into fandom. So again, these are things that we can offer publishers and think creatively with our authors to make sure that we're kind of breaking down the barriers between authors' work and their fans.
And so when the initial launch was in 2023, it was an automatic 15 hours of listening that was included in the plan. Back then, if you ran out of the 15 hours, was that just it? Like you couldn't listen to any more? Because I think you did eventually did add-on type subscriptions, but was that the limit in the very beginning?
No, back then you were able to buy one-off additional hours. So many people did hit the 15 hours, so you're able to do that. You had to go out of the app and do so. That was a real tell that there were casual fans, but there are also people who wanted more as well. So we've since evolved that strategy. So rather than just being able to buy a lump sum of 10 hours, which you could use whenever you liked, that actually people want more hours as a kind of recurring entitlement as well. So we've since launched this product called Audiobooks Plus, which serves two needs really. One, it allows people who run out of hours to buy another 15 hours on top of their 15 hours. So essentially they have a 30-hour subscription at a fair price point. And secondly, the 15-hour entitlement is actually only available initially for the master account holders. So you may know about the various sort of different accounts we have at Spotify. We have a premium account, we have a duo account, which allows someone and their partner to have two accesses to Spotify, and a family account as well. So Audiobooks Plus also allows those secondary account holders, my wife, for instance, or my children, to buy additional hours on a recurring basis as well. So for us, we kind of want to sort of, audiobooks and premium is very much a funnel. It kind of allows people to understand and taste and hopefully form healthy habits of listening to audiobooks. But then when they listen to more and more and get a taste for it, they can buy additional recurring hours for the super fans as well. So that's very much how we see the evolution of the product.
Yeah, so like you can buy, if you're a free user of Spotify and you don't pay for music, you could sign up for just a standalone audiobook subscription account, and that gets you 10 hours. But if you're already a paying subscriber, you get the 15 hours, but you can buy additional hours in 10-hour blocks as like an add-on subscription, basically.
Yeah, we can buy 10 hours as a non-recurring subscription, or you can buy 15 hours on a recurring basis, which comes out of your billing cycle every month as well.
And then those hours roll over, right?
They roll over if you buy them independently, but the recurring hours don't roll over. It's effectively 30 hours on a monthly basis.
Yeah. Okay. And then what has been kind of the like growth since then? Like, I don't know if Spotify released these numbers or these were third-party numbers, but I remember seeing like Spotify's already has a not insignificant amount of market share in the audiobook market. I don't know how much you can speak to that, to how big you guys are compared to the overall audiobook market now.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of official data. There's a company called Bookstat, which builds out an estimation of the market. And again, that alongside with anecdotal conversations with publishers, we think we've probably got about 25% of the audiobook market in the US, which we're really delighted with.
25%, that's huge.
Yeah, and we're seeing, on an annual basis that our consumption is growing on a 60% year-on-year basis, which is great. And one of the things which we're really delighted with is, more than half of people who have the ability or the entitlement for audiobooks have now tried an audiobook as well. So that's a significant amount of people who suddenly have audiobooks available to them and are trying. So our goal is to get more and more of those to start listening, to get them kind of really excited about audiobooks, and to create a lasting habit of loving books.
Do you have any data that like if a user starts dabbling in audiobooks, like their subscriber churn rate goes down or something like that?
Nothing I can share, but I think it's a pretty kind of, as we say, we're trying to add value to premium subscribers. So what we do know is those who use across all three are engaging with Spotify a lot more, and as you'd expect, they would almost use Spotify on a daily basis. So that's a great kind of way of encouraging retention. So yeah.
Have you heard anything about, like, from the self-publishing community about whether this model, because it allows more casual listening, maybe more efficient recommendations, that they're able to break in easier to the market? Like, what can you share about how this is changing listening habits? Because obviously this is a radically new model, so people are probably consuming audiobooks in a slightly different way than they would on, like, Audible or something like that.
Yeah, I think it certainly helps. Independent authors, they want discoverability, right? It's very hard to, they don't have much access to the physical book market because physical, big publishers, have strong relationships with those trades. So they just want discoverability. They want access to an audience, and that's something we can bring as well. So the independent catalog has increased 50% year on year as well. So they're beginning to put more books into the Spotify ecosystem. Audible has a very strong historic relationship with independent authors because it was very much the only only player in town. But we're seeing, independent authors sort of trying to break free from those exclusivity options to make sure that they can reach as wide an audience as possible. And I think, again, going back to the model, a lot of books, everyone are in the media, and and often they are from the big publishers. But again, having the ability to try a book really helps out independent authors because there's no jeopardy, and you can discover an independent author you may have never would have taken a risk on before. So I think our model really allows for experimentation. A lot of independent authors publish into like niche genres as well, and we can really help them find those audiences on Spotify.
So when, like, the Kindle first launched, you'd see these stories about these breakout, like, self-published authors that, basically because it invented this market from scratch, they were able to find, like, a huge audience base. Do you have any kind of breakout stories on Spotify? Maybe an author that wasn't doing well on other platforms, but is now, like, a bestseller and has been picked up by, like, major book publishers or anything like that as a result of, like, first springing up on Spotify?
Nothing to share right now. Sorry, my mind has gone blank, and
okay.
And I don't want to, but I can get back to you on that. But we're seeing that as well. For instance, one example we have is Ali Hazelwood, who, for instance, she's a pretty established author. And she came to us with the opportunity to publish a exclusive new book, and it sold really well on Spotify. And then a big 5 publisher then bought the rights to sell the physical book as well, which was a great, showing that actually a lot of publishers, a lot of independent authors themselves are experimenting with an audio first strategy. They see the success happening, and then physical book publishers, obviously are data led, and allows them to buy the rights of physical sales, and they can sell them in Walmart and Barnes and Noble as well. So we're seeing that kind of interoperability working really, really well with our platform as well.
Is Spotify acting like a traditional book publisher and acquiring audiobook rights?
We do have a team that does that. Again, it's relatively small. We're sort of very mindful about the situation, but where the rights are available, we do publish books. The one thing that we insist on, and it's very important for us as a principle, is that we don't buy exclusive rights and only make them available on Spotify. So the books that we do publish through for our own imprint, we make sure they're available on all platforms, and we think that's only great for the ecosystem and for our authors.
Interesting. Okay, but that's like a very small part of what you're doing.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about like new things you've been doing. So let's first, like you mentioned, like you entered into an agreement with some like magazine publishers and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about that? When did that happen, and what is exactly is the Spotify doing? Yeah, so
I think we launched that about 2 months ago, and basically, magazine publishers sort of want an opportunity to grow their reach as well, and essentially, it's kind of using digital voice narration to narrate an article from The Atlantic, and we've started off as a test. We've got about 700 articles, but it just basically allows our customers to discover amazing kind of long form articles, through the spoken word. And again, we think this is really great to sort of create that flywheel. Again, podcasts have been a great way of getting people across to audiobooks, and we think articles are a small snippet to get people listening to a 20-minute article of a subject they're really interested in, and hopefully discover this whole wonderful world of audiobooks or podcasts, and just kind of helps people sort of dive into this, the audio world. So magazine publishers are really enjoying what we're seeing so far, but it's very much in early days for us.
And so in that case, Spotify is ingesting the article and using its own chosen AI tool to create the narration for it?
So I don't know the exact ins and outs of that, but we're working hand in hand with the publishers to help the audio narration of that, yeah.
So speaking of AI, narration, I think you've also launched some new tools, especially for self-published authors, because that's always been the biggest barrier for self-published authors to move into audiobooks, is you have to be able to, for a long time you had to be able to afford a studio and maybe even a professional voice actor and editors and a production team, and it was quite expensive. There's a lot of authors are dipping their toes with AI narration, though there's some skepticism about keeping quality high and stuff like that. What can you tell me about what Spotify is doing with AI integrations, especially as it relates to narration?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, human narration and human craft is something that is vital for us and important for us. But you're right, there are instances where, for independent authors in particular, getting a narrator into the studio is a costly endeavor. And the gap between what is available in ebooks or in physical books versus what's available in audiobooks, there's probably only 750 a million audiobooks available in the market compared to tens of millions of books out there. So we just want to make it easier for everybody to have their book available in audio, and we call it digital voice narration. We think is a great stepping stone for that to happen. So we obviously are aware that this is something we need to be very conscious about and intentional about. But we've partnered with 11 Labs, and we allow independent authors through our own portal, Spotify for Authors, to create up to 5 audiobooks through a selection of voices from this service, which we've worked very closely on, to trial out the ability to create an audiobook and have it live, not just on Spotify, but on all other platforms as well. So we've launched this in a closed beta, and the initial results are great, but we're just sort of working out the response, how authors are enjoying the process, and we'll iterate from there. But it's we think it's a great opportunity to level the playing field and allow for their amazing work to be heard.
So if I'm a self-published author, I can log into some kind of Spotify portal and upload 5 of my text-based PDFs or whatever to the portal, and it'll choose a voice and maybe some other kind of parameters, and it'll produce 5 audiobooks for me that will then appear in the Spotify marketplace.
Exactly that, but you can also make that available on any other platform which accepts the files as well.
And what if I want more than 5 books? Is there a way that I can do that, pay to do it or something?
Well, so we're working that out at the moment. At the moment, this is just a beta, and we're funding this as well. So we're just trying to sort of go through the process and see how it works before expanding it any further.
So what is kind of the roadmap going forward? Are there any other new products you've announced? There was one other thing I wanted to ask. So Spotify obviously has made a big foray into video with the podcast, where you can listen to a podcast and then watch it simultaneously. Obviously, there's easily a similar thing with books, where you could listen to a book and you can also read it as well. I think Audible and Amazon have some kind of integration like that. Is there any current availability of that on Spotify to be able to switch back and forth between reading and audio? Is that something you eventually want to do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm disappointed you haven't seen it already, because it's a product we're so proud of. It's called PageMatch. We launched it probably about 6 months ago, I think, earlier this year. And do you know what, of all the products that we've launched on Spotify, even outside of audiobooks, it's probably had some of the best feedback from our users. And we call it PageMatch. So if you're on the product page of the audiobook, you can click on PageMatch, and within the app you can take a picture of the book. Let me step back. So I like to read in bed a physical book. So as I'm reading before I go to bed in the morning, when I'm going to go for a run or do some laundry, you can take a picture within the app of the page you're on. Say I'm on page 75. It'll then sync up to that very moment in the audiobook you're listening to as well. And it works so beautifully seamlessly that it's gone down really well. And some of the take up has been fantastic. And again, you can flip back. So if you want to go back into bed and read the physical book, you can use the technology, and it will tell you which page you need to go to in the physical book as well. And this works really well because, for us, we know that a lot of people love reading physical books, and that will never change. So we just want to make sure that we're kind of meeting audiences where they are. So actually, people who are using this page match feature, they're actually seeing that their uplift in listening has gone up 55%, but also most importantly, they're finishing books twice as fast as well. So this is great for creating these healthy reading habits. It also means that their publishers and the authors get the opportunity to get paid more. They're getting a royalty from the physical book they bought from Barnes & Noble, but also from us as well. And actually, people who are using it are 6 years younger as well. So again, we're tapping into a much younger audience as well. But it's a great product, and I think it sort of shows that people aren't. I think for a long time, people have thought that you are either an audiobook listener or you like reading physical books or ebooks. That's clearly not true. People want to find ways that they can consume their favorite books at times when it's inconvenient for them to listen to physical books. So this is a technology we're very proud of. We're going to continue to roll it out into new markets. And yeah, we're really happy with it. And then a second, sorry.
Well, that's amazing. That's incredible. I somehow missed that news. Does it only work with physical books, or can I take a photo of my Kindle?
You can take a picture of your ebook as well, and it will sync up. And then another innovation we launched about the same time is called recaps as well. And this is, we know that life gets in the way, and you might have started a book and put it down or not listened to it for a week or two, and one of the big frictions about getting back into it is you've forgotten the main protagonist or what's happened before. So recap are basically, if you click on recap, it gives you a kind of a minute summary of only the part of the book you've listened to re-jog your memory and get you back into the book and encourage you to finish that as well. So we've had a great take up in that as well. We're really happy that customers are enjoying it, and it's actually helping with the completion of books as well. So we're really kind of want to keep on innovating in this space to help consumption, to help forming these habits, and ultimately to help authors get more books listened to.
And that's AI that's kind of scanning what you've already read and giving you that summary.
Yeah, so again, AI is obviously a hot topic, and we, and publishers and authors themselves, want to make sure that we're doing this as carefully and respectfully as possible. But we've worked hand in hand with them in creating this tool, and it allows them to generate only the part of the book which has been listened to try and avoid spoilers as well. But categorically, we make sure that in any use of AI that we never use it, authors work to actually train LLMs. So that's a very important aspect for us.
So there's not currently a way for you to read ebooks in Spotify, like to switch back and forth. Is that... I'm guessing this is going to be a no comment, but is that something you would like to offer eventually?
Who knows? I mean, we want to broaden out into books per se. We've launched this relationship with bookshop.org as well. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're a fantastic company which sells audiobooks, sells physical books, and independent bookshops get a cut of the sale as well. So we kind of want to make it easier for people to consume books in the format they like, but no kind of plans immediately for ebooks.
Yeah, I read about that. So so they have their own audiobook app. How does it integrate? What are they doing with Spotify? I forget. Oh, it's something like if they have an ebook, you could read it or something.
So on the product page of Spotify, if you're listening to a book, we allow a link out to buy the book from bookshop.org. So we're encouraging people to buy the physical book, and a percentage of that sale goes to funding your local bookshop in Washington.
Yeah, I wrote about this in my newsletter. I portrayed it as an enemy of my enemy is my friend. If Spotify can drive market share away from Amazon to an up and coming bookshop.org, then that benefits both sides. But you probably don't want to comment on that. Okay, so what's on the horizon? Is there anything else you can talk about the ways that you want to, disrupt the audiobook market, what the opportunity is there? One thing I didn't ask is about advertising. Like, obviously, Spotify was like an innovator there in terms of podcast advertising and music and advertising in between songs. I don't think there's ads appearing within audiobooks, but it seems like there's like a big opportunity there to get additional revenue. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because books are only available in the premium service, which is ad free, there were no adverts within books. So that kind of takes that aspect out of the equation. In terms of like what's next, we want to continue to find new audiences for our books. We looking at new markets. Obviously, we are in 22 markets around the world so far, and also just to help create this we kind of see on Spotify that in a world where like doom scrolling is so prevalent, and I fall into the trap as well, that we want people to come away from Spotify feeling in a good place, feeling that they've listened to an incredible piece of music, a great podcast, and particular books. Books are the epitome of like time well spent. So we want to kind of encourage these healthy habits. We want to help create reading habits. Obviously, audiobooks plus, where we allow and encourage people to listen to more hours, is the big focus for us. But yeah, we want to help create more audiences for our authors to expand their works.
Okay, Duncan, those were all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
Oh my God, on LinkedIn. I kind of that's sadly my age, I suppose, my main source of social media now. But I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm sure people can find me there.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.